Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will begin with chapter 25, verse 38. Chapter 25, verse 38. We were discussing yesterday a pasuk about the prohibition of charging interest to another Jew. And then a pasuk or two later, the section closes out. Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am Hashem your God, Asher hotzeisi eschem me'eretz Mitzrayim, that I took you out of the land of Egypt. Lo aseis lochem es eretz Canaan, to give you the land of Canaan, lios lachem le'elokim, to be for you a God. Lios lachem le'elokim is an interesting closure. It's to be for you a God. You again, similar to what we said yesterday, you could say that at the end of every pasuk in the Torah. Certainly, the sections of instructions, everything is God does for us to be for us a God. What's the message here in to be for us a God? And what kind of jumps out at a person trying to figure that out is one of two things, or maybe both. One thing is maybe it's in the context of the mitzvah of not charging interest. Maybe there's something about that mitzvah that unique to that we say this phrase to be for you a God. The other thing is the phrase immediately before to be for you a God is to give you the land of Israel. So maybe to be for you a God is connected to giving to you the land of Israel. It's interesting. So we'll start with Rashi. It's the third Rashi on Pasuk Lamed Ches, Lios lochem le'elokim, Shekol hador be'eretz Yisrael, ani lo le'elokim. Anyone who lives in Israel, I am for him a God. Chol hayotze mimenu ka'oved avodah zarah. And anyone who leaves the land of Israel, it's like they're worshiping idols. Really strong. So just in terms of, we have to try to figure out what that even means, this Rashi, but in terms of answering the question of what's meant by the phrase to be for you a God, Rashi is clearly understanding that it's significant, that it's juxtaposed to give you the land of Israel. So my giving you the land of Israel allows you to have a relationship with me of a servant serving his God, of a religionist serving his or her God, and that without the land of Israel, it's much more difficult to accomplish that. That seems to be what Rashi is saying. Before we reflect on this for a moment, I just want to see an Orach Chaim first. Orach Chaim, a pasuk lamed ches, Perish, v'agam shani omer lochem, lo tzii eschem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lo seis lochem es eretz Canaan. Even though I've told you that I've taken you out of Egypt to give you the land of Israel, lo lechol mituva v'lispoa mipirya hu atachlis. The reason I'm giving you the land of Israel is not because it's a really great land and I want you to enjoy it. I'm happy for you to enjoy the land of Israel, but that's not the reason I'm giving it to you. Ella Dios lachem le'elokim hu ikar haaretz. The primary reason I'm giving you the land of Israel is to be for you a God. The amru zal b'toras kohanim v'zel shonam kol hayoshev be'eretz Yisrael mikabel alav o malchus shamayim. This seems to be saying a point very similar to what Rashi is saying, a little bit of a smoother edge on it. The Orach Chaim brings down a medrash that a person who lives in Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, there is a natural inclination to accept upon themselves the yoke of heaven. So the point, according to Orach Chaim, seems to be when I give you the land of Israel, it's because I want you to grow. It's not just like some present. I could have given you a nice car. I could have given you, a beautiful house. I gave you the land of Israel. It's much more than that. It's a place of spirituality. The way the medrash that Rashi cites is normally understood, we could understand it along the lines of the medrash that Orach Chaim cites, which is that there's a natural inspiration to serve God in Israel that's not present in other places. Doesn't mean that if a person's not in Israel, they're doing avodah zarah, but it means that you're starting from a whole different point of view in the land of Israel. Another classic idea that comes up a lot when looking at this Rashi is there are many mitzvos that are only in play in Israel, and that if one doesn't live in Israel, one loses the opportunity to perform all these mitzvos. but it's a frequently quoted Rashi. It's interesting to, I don't want to take more time, but it's interesting to think about it. So that's Rashi, it's Torah Chaim. Now let's go to the Sforno. Sforno on Pasuk Lamed Ches. Lios lochem lelokim. Shia tachlis hamechuven mimenu musag bein kulchem. We had a similar point yesterday, if I remember correctly. I gave you the land of Israel to be for all of you a God. Lochem is in the plural. The goal is that be something that works out well for each of you. The way you should interact with each other needs to be a manner by which you can all thrive. You need to be helping each other to meet the desired goal. So he's understanding it as being about the context of the mitzvah of not lending with interest, that it's a great thing to lend money to a fellow Jew. And if another Jew needs money, you have the opportunity to give them the money, give it to them. Don't sit there trying to figure out what money you'll make off of the kindness. Everything I give you is for the purpose of your developing with other people. So you always have to be thinking to yourself as a Jew, particularly a Jew in the land of Israel, which is fundamentally the gift of God. How can I thrive with my neighbors? So that's just the Sforno's point. Okay, we're going to go on now to chapter 26, verse 6, Parshas Behar-Bechukotai. Okay, if anybody tells you Behar-Bechukotai has a lot of curses in it, they're right. But if anybody tells you Behar-Bechukotai only has curses in it, they're wrong. There are very, very nice psukim before we get to the Tochacha, before we get to the curses, talking about if the Jewish people do what they're supposed to do, God will bring them remarkable blessing. Let's start with chapter 26, verse 6. God says, V'nosati shalom ba'aretz. I will bring peace to the land. Ushchavtem v'ein macharid. You'll be able to go to sleep at night without being disturbed, without being frightened in any way. I will lay rest bad beasts from the land. Guy like me has a very broad definition. And a sword will not pass through your land. So God says, I'll see to it, if you're worshiping me correctly, I'll see to it that no dangerous beasts will be present. Okay. Sorry, I just place. Okay. Ramban on Pasuk Vav, the second Ramban on Pasuk Vav, Vishbati Chayara min haaretz. Al das Rabbi Yehuda she'amar ma'avir min ha'olam hu k'pshuto shelo yavo chayos roos ba'artzam. The idea is that dangerous beasts won't come into the land of Israel. Ki biyos hasava ubirvos hatova. Being that there'll be so much satiation in the land of Israel, there'll be so much good in the land of Israel. Veyos ha'arim meleos adam, and the land, cities will be very populated because there's so much bracha there. Lo savona chayos b'yishuv. So therefore, animals will be, dangerous animals will be intimidated of coming in. Yildas Reb Shimon she'amar mashpisan shelo yaziku yomer vishbati. This actually is interesting, machlokas. It either means I will lay rest to dangerous beasts from coming in, meaning that certain species of animals just won't come into the land of Israel. They'll be intimidated it's coming because there'll be so many people there. Or I'll lay rest to the badness of animals, meaning it's not that all of a sudden certain animals won't exist in Israel anymore. They'll still exist, but they won't be aggressive and they won't be dangerous. The Ramban says this second shot is the correct one. Kitia Eretz Yisrael beis kiyum mitzvos kasher haya ha'olam b'tchilaso kodem cheto shel adam harishon. It's a really neat thing to think about. Ramban says that if and when the Jewish people get to the point of complete fulfillment as a nation of the mitzvahs of Hashem, the land of Israel will be like the world was before Adam and Chava sinned. Ein chaya v'remes meimis Adam. No creature would kill anyone. In other words, so It's not that, oh, all those kind of creatures won't be around. It's that creatures won't want to be aggressive. Okay, it's a famous Gemara that when an animal kills a person, it's not the animal killing, it's the sin killing. In other words, it's actually less complicated when it's animals against people. It's people against people. There's all these issues about free will, etc. When it's a creature killing a person, the point is this was the will of God in one way or another. So it could be the person sinned, it could be it's an atonement, it could be this is when the person's end is supposed to, whatever it is. But the point is, it's much less about the animal than it is about the person and God. Okay. Let's skip about 6 lines. You know what? I'm sorry. We're gonna hold here with the Ramban, but it's a very interesting image. The idea of bringing peace to the world in this aspect, says the Ramban, it will be like the world was before the sin of Adam, because animals won't even want to injure people. Okay, let's jump into verse 11. Excuse me. V'nasati mishkani b'sochachem, I will place my divine sanctuary in your midst, v'lo nafshi eschem, and my soul will not be repulsed by you. There's a very interesting Ramban on this pasuk, about 15 lines into the Ramban, beginning with the phrase "V'nei habrachos ha'ela." V'nei habrachos ha'ela k'fi pshutan. The blessings being said in these psukim, imeyoson rabos klolios. There's so many and they're so broad. Binin hamatar, talking about rain coming at a good time. Asova, satiation. Vashalom, peace. Upiria, rivya, Jewish people successfully reproducing. Einan kemo habrachos shabire kvar b'tzara. B'ktzara. Uveirach eslachba v'esbeimecha v'asirosi machalom b'kirbecha. Earlier in the Chumash, God says, if you do my will, I'll bless, your bread and your water, and I'll remove illness from you. Says the Ramban, these extensive blessings that are mentioned here are on a very different scale than blessings mentioned elsewhere in the Torah. Kisham yavtiach b'machal b'mishteh. Elsewhere in the Torah, it's talking about food. V'shiyeh lebracha shel yera shum choli b'gufeinu, and that the food and drink should be blessed so much so that we'll be healthy. If we're healthy, then we'll be able to successfully reproduce. V'nolad kahogan, we'll reproduce. V'nichi yamim leim, we'll live good lives, full lives. So actually, the Ramban says that elsewhere in Torah, when it talks about the blessings of food and drink and then other things, he says it's a domino effect. If there's blessing in food and drink, then the people will be of a certain level of health, and a lot of other things will fall into play. If God blesses our food, that everything should be abundant, that everything should be healthy, that's miraculous. But it's hidden miracles. Elsewhere in the Torah, God says, I'll bless your food if you're good. That's hidden miracles. Even if there's just an individual doing the will of God, he could merit those types of blessings. But we'll see it tomorrow. Mitzvah the Ramban is about to go on to explain how the blessings in this week's parsha, the positive things of Behar-Bechukotai, are of a totally different scale. So we discussed this morning the pasuk of God saying to be to us a God, what's meant by that pasuk. We discussed the picture that Ramban paints of what it means that the animals won't attack in the land of Israel when we're doing the will of God. We began discussing the Ramban's perspective on the very unique nature of the blessings in this week's parsha.